Please note, the guards have been removed from some of the machinery for the filming of this video. This is for video purposes only. Please operate all machinery with guards in place. And remember to work safe. Thank you for watching. Okay, so I'm scraping the excess glue off with a curved scraper. I also have curved scrapers for the inside of the shell as well, if there are any spots to be touched up. Now I only had a couple of spots that needed touching up on these drums, so they came out very good. And if you're going to build drums, you're going to have to do touch-up work. So next I will orbital sand it with a 220 grit. And the dust will fill in the crack where the glue is. And that will finish the sanding. Now I'll take a close look at one of the shells. You can see the edge, how nicely sanded it is. And the pieces all go together very nicely, and all the sanding is done, and the next step would be to start putting the finish on. But we'll just take a look at this shell here and you can see the quality. Very high quality product. And all the shells pretty much came out the same as that. And everything's sanded and ready to go for the finish. Now I'm going to mix up some sealer. I'm going to put 2/3 sealer and 1/3 of lacquer thinner. And that's the mixture I use. And it works out good. So strain it. Make sure there's no lumps or anything in it. That way it won't plug up your spray gun. Always strain your lacquer and sealer. The next step would be to add thinner to the sealer. So I filled the cup up 2/3 with sealer, and I'll top it off with thinner. Then I will stir it thoroughly. Make sure that it's nicely mixed together, and it'll spray quite nicely this way. So we're ready to spray. I'm going to apply 5 coats of sealer to the inside and outside of all the shells. And it takes a few coats for it to start to build up. And there's a purple hard shell, and I'm going to spray the inside and outside of that. And I'll keep going that way till I finish all the shells. And then I'll start over again with the second coat. It only takes about 20 minutes for the lacquer to dry. So you can move along fairly quickly with this step. Also remember to spray the bearing edge as well. It's a quarter cut maple shell. Putting the first coat of sealer on. And you can see the fan, which removes the overspray. And it works out very nicely. This is an 8-inch Babinga shell. Putting the first coat of sealer on. Spraying the bearing edge. And then the outside. Then when I'm going to spray the next coat on, I flip the drum over so I can do the other bearing edge. And alternate them that way. Now I have some open grain woods in this batch of drums. So I'll apply the sealer, and then I'm going to apply a grain filler to any open grain woods. And when I apply the grain filler, apply it to some of the drums with combinations of wood. I'll just go right over the maple. For this example, it would be Purple Heart Maple. And I'll put the grain filler right over the maple and onto the Purple Heart. It's all going to be sanded off. And this is the high salt filler. It's water base. And it's good to apply, and you can spray lacquer right over top of it. The sealer has been drying for 2 weeks. Now I'm ready to apply the grain filler to the shells that need to have the grain filled. This is a Babinga maple, and the Babinga needs the grain filler. So I just go right over top of the maple too. And I'm going to scrape the excess off with a flexible scraper. Is used for doing body work. You can also use a varathane or urethane to finish your drum shells, and just brush the finish on if you don't have a spray gun and a compressor. Maybe you can't afford it. So you can just brush a finish on, and you can get a really nice finish that way. You might have to sand a little bit between coats. And you can see I put it on fairly heavy there. Then I'm going to take a scraper and scrape the excess off. I'll show that on this shell. So I just keep working my way around the shell and brush it out good so it gets in all the open grain. Because we are applying a high gloss finish, we need to put the grain filler in. to have a perfectly flat and smooth surface to apply the high gloss lacquer to. So I let that dry for 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'm ready to scrape the excess off. And it takes quite a bit off, but it still needs to be sanded. I scrape on a bit of an angle there just to get the grain filler to go into the grain, into the open grain. And I just keep working my way around the drum until the surface is completely covered. And I'll do all the shells the same way. Once that has dried properly, just for overnight, then I'm ready to over sand with a 400 grit sanding disc. And I'm going to sand the grain filler down until it's just in the open grain. So the open grain is filled. And I have to be careful not to sand through the sealer. I don't want to sand through. I just want to sand the grain filler off. And I'll have to sand all of the shells that I put the grain filler on the same way with the 400 grit sandpaper. It takes a bit of sanding to get down to the grain filler. Always wear a dust mask when you're sanding. A lot of fine dust can accumulate in your lungs. So you can see it takes a bit of sanding to get this down. Once I get the sanding done, I'll wipe it down very good with a cloth to take any dust off the surface. And then I'll use a blowgun to remove any excess that's left. And once that's done and completely cleaned up, now I will be ready to start applying the satin finish lacquer on the inside and outside of the shells. Before that, I'm going to sand the bevel to the bearing edge because I'm going to be buffing that as well. So I'm going to sand the bevel on all of the shells, top and bottom. And I'll sand the bevel on all the shells. Then I'll be ready to apply lacquer to the surface. Now I use a satin finish lacquer because I'm going to be spraying the inside and the outside of the shell. So at this point, I'm going to apply 5 coats of satin lacquer to the inside and outside of the shell. And that will be all that I'll be using on the inside. I'll be going on the outside to apply a high gloss lacquer. You can see I'm starting to get a bit of buildup happening there on the drum now. starting to look a bit better already. And there's the shell with the 5 coats of satin lacquer on the inside and outside. So then I'm back to sanding. This is after waiting for a couple of weeks for the lacquer to dry. And I'm going to sand it flat with a 400 grit sanding disc again. And this is going to flatten, take all imperfections out of the surface. And then at that point it will be ready to apply the high gloss lacquer tape. And it will make a nice smooth surface. And it will have no imperfections. So as you can see, there's a lot of sanding involved in building these drums. And once again, I'll wipe everything down really well. Get all the dust off the surface before I apply my high gloss lacquer. So I'm going to use a strainer. I'm going to put 2/3 of a cup into the spray gun, and I'll add 1/3 of thinner to that. And now I'm ready to add the high gloss lacquer to the cup. And I'll strain that the same. And then I'll add the lacquer thinner, and I'll stir it well again. And then I'll be ready to spray. So now I'll add the thinner to the cup to bring it up to the top. And then I'll be ready to spray. Put 5 coats of high gloss lacquer on the drum shells. Only on the outside. The inside is completed at this point. Only need to have a satin finish on the inside. Stir it well, and you'll be ready to spray. Now whatever finish you're using, you would apply with the brush over the spray gun. Pretty much the same manner for spraying. For brushing, you would brush with the grain. The brush on finish would require some sanding as well. I'm going to apply the high gloss to all the shells, 5 coats. And you can see that that's a high gloss finish. So I'm going to do all the shells that way. And I'm not worrying about the inside anymore now. Just the outside. For each drum, work my way through, and then start over again. Because that only takes about 20 minutes for the lacquer to dry. so you can be ready to spray again fairly quickly. It's a nice quarter-cut Purple Heart shell. The Bavinga. Get the high gloss on that, will look pretty good. Lacquer is fast and easy to apply. Since it dries so fast, I can do the finish on the drums in one day. Take a look at that one. And that's about it for this section. I have all the drums sprayed now. I have to let them sit and dry again for a couple of weeks. And then I'll be ready to go on to the next step, which we will do in the next video.